So great catching up with my next guest, John Gooden. What a better person to get on here to preview UFC 304 than UK's finest. John, how's it going, man? How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Excited for next week.
Yes, and of course, I was excited to see you at International Fight Week. Listen, I got to tell people the story quickly before we get into this preview. John sees me at the UFC-X. He comes over, he shakes my hand. He always does this at events. It was really, really good to see you because I don't think I had seen you since Vancouver. That was the last card I remember seeing you for that card, UFC 289 in June. So I got to ask, how was Vegas and the whole UFC-X? Because you're obviously very busy there.
Yeah, I was busy the week before. We had Saudi Arabia, I think Vegas, Saudi Arabia, straight to X. And by that point, I was a little fatigued, but UFC-X was something special. And I'm really pleased that I booked well in advance. Full disclosure, I was going out there to see Conor. Obviously, that didn't happen. But put my hand in the air to do some work at UFC-X and then just took advantage of catching up with old friends and colleagues, guys in the biz. And also fans, right? I'm a fan first, and just being in the room with so many other people that have a passion for mixed martial arts and the athletes within it, special time.
Yeah, it was great. Let's talk about, speaking of great, talk about this pay-per-view, UFC 304. They really pulled out all the stops for this one. One thing I wanted to know from you, though, specifically, it's in Manchester. It's a UK heavy card. We have, obviously, Leon Edwards, Tom Aspinall, Paddy Pimblett. Does it have that big card feel? Because I think over here in North America, I'm in Canada, but it does kind of feel like a big pay-per-view. How is the feeling over there in the UK from what you gathered?
Yeah, I think it does. We're all excited about it. There are other events that try and build shoulder stuff around like this big epic main event, big Saturday night, Sunday morning. So you'll have things going on that week as people see that, the UFC are rolling into town. There's obviously a lot of discussion around the timing, not great for fans, even the athletes. Some of them are a little bit upset about it. Then some of them realize it might not be so bad after all, but it creates debate. So that's been keeping the wheels turning on like the media side, if you will. But more than that, we just got a bunch of winners in the UK. And when you've got two fellas holding pieces of gold, then that just gives it immediately a big fight feel. Tom's interim belt, Leon's, welterweight belt, such a prestigious belt as well, right? With such deep competition. And then two rematches to boot. So there are kind of a few storylines going into this one. But yeah, real celebration of mixed martial arts here in the UK and Ireland, of course. We got representation from over there too. So great opportunity for everyone to come together next week.
Leon Edwards and Belal Muhammad obviously fought to that no contest a couple of years ago. I hear a lot of people referencing that first fight. Is there anything you can take away from that, even though it was, I think, back in 2019, we're more than three years removed from that fight? Is that something you look at, or do you think we're getting a different fight, but maybe with the same fighter style?
I think we can, These guys aren't, it's not like they were amateurs back then. They were at the top of their game. I'm not saying that improvements haven't been made. I'm not saying that Belal, for instance, hasn't gone on to really prove, if there was any doubt in anyone's mind whether he was, the guy to be challenging for a title, he has gone on some kind of tear since then. What is it, a decade now unbeaten, something like that. So all credit to him. I know that he's done a bit more work with Habib and he's put himself in various different rooms and it's solidified where he's at right now. So he's done everything that he can to prepare for this one. Leon, I just think he gets better and better and wiser. And I think that's really important. He's also won over the British public through his success. And something that maybe we'll come on to is, Belal is talking a lot at the moment. And he is saying some pretty, well, he's discrediting Leon in a lot of ways. He's got a lot of thoughts about his personality and his marketability, etc., etc. But Leon has earned this fanfare over here in the UK. The wider populace, they like winners, and Leon's done nothing but that, right? So he's earned the popularity. Belal is deluded if he thinks he's going to walk out and he's going to get the cheers and Leon's going to get the boos. Like, it's not going to be that way. So that's an interesting note. But just to go back onto your point, I think we can take a little bit from there. I think we can see how Leon is super comfortable. I think that Leon can show he can come out quickly and really put it on someone. But on Belal's side, I think that he'll want to make some changes, obviously, from that first round. What a horrible situation for everyone.
Well, and also, I wonder with the judging as well, because I think most people would agree this fight will probably go the full 5 rounds, just if you look at the history of both of them in terms of finishing fights. And obviously, this is in Manchester. The fans are going to be on Leon's side. Like, does Belal have to finish this fight, or do you see a scenario where he could potentially win a decision despite being an underdog in this situation?
You can't possibly be saying that the judges will be influenced by the fans.
That's never happened. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I think that. Listen, I think that the best man must win, and if Belal gets it done on the scorecards, then I don't think that he should go out there with a kind of game plan in any other way. Because I think that's risky and foolish, you know, and it also, you know, takes something away from the credibility of the judges. So I do agree with you though. These guys are very good at winning on the judges' scorecards. I think Leon. One thing that Belal's been saying is he's been questioning Leon's intelligence. But if there's anyone that I think about when it comes to fight IQ in 2024, it's Leon Edwards. I just think he's so smart, and the way that he chooses to just play out those fights at his pace, and Belal's recognized that. He did talk about Leon, you know, you play his game, if you go into his pacing of a fight, well, it takes some intelligence and some technical ability to not lull you into that, but bait you into that, and for you to sing to his tune. And I think he's a very smart guy, particularly when it comes to the fight game.
As far as the winner of this fight and who could be next, I think it depends on who wins, obviously. If Leon wins, I think there's a case to either just give Shavkat Rakhmonov the title shot, or they do maybe him and Ian Gary. Jack Della Maddalena was supposed to be that fight with Shavkat, but obviously he's still recovering a bit. If Belal wins, I could see a scenario where maybe they run it back because they've already fought previously before. I know it ended in a no contest. Do you see it differently, or how do you sort of see, who do you potentially see as the winner for this fight?
No, I think that's the way that I see it, and I feel really bad for Jack Della. Right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, he is something special. He really is, and he was the guy that was saying, "Give me Shavkat," and who wouldn't want to see that fight? So yeah, I think you got it pretty right there. Shavkat, I mean, he's probably the guy who we're going to see next. I mean, Leon did say on an interview with local media over here that he wants to defend the title many times, and he sees opportunities at 170. Sorry, he sees opportunities in those coming forward at 170.
Yeah.
So he's not necessarily looking for that Makhachev fight. He's not necessarily looking to go up to 185 in 2024. I think he said maybe at the end of 2025 he might look to go up to middleweight. So if he has, achieved everything that he wants to at welterweight, and I kind of like that. I like to see champions solidify their spots. I know that there are some outliers and some really fun matchmaker. I don't want to be a killjoy, Alex Pereira, but for Leon, I think it kind of suits what's gone before in his career if he sticks around and puts in some good numbers.
Co-main event's amazing. I love this rematch. Tom Aspinall, Curtis Blaydes, interim heavyweight title, although a lot of people feel like this is the real belt because, these are the two top guys in the weight class. I think if you ask their prediction, I think a lot of people feel like because of the previous losses for Blaydes, of him being knocked out, that Aspinall could potentially do that. How do you see this fight unfolding? I don't need an official prediction, but just, there's a lot of factors here. We got Blaydes' wrestling, but we got Aspinall, who's got phenomenal stand-up, really good ground game, and he moves like a light heavyweight middleweight. So we'll see if Curtis can deal with that. What are you sort of looking at with this matchup?
Yeah, so let me make a case for Curtis Blaydes. And actually, that's a really unfair way to put it because I don't need to be making a case for him, but
for sure,
y'all must have forgot, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he is a very, very dangerous guy, a legitimate perennial contender who has been there or thereabouts for the longest time. He's across those leaderboards with his style as well. Obviously, the wrestling heavy grappling style, but the man will open you up if he lands an elbow, and he will change the fight in an instant. But I've questioned some of his strategy every now and then. I was on the call for the Pavlovich fight, and I just look back. I just can't stop but go back to that fight and think, you've done the one thing that I thought that you wouldn't. And I don't know if he got caught up in people questioning his striking ability. I mean, I've never done that. He's just very, very good with his wrestling first type style. But to try and go toe to toe with Pavlovich, I'm not saying on another day it wouldn't have worked, but why roll the dice like that? Like, go
Yeah.
back to your bread and butter and build your way into that title picture. And you know what? I don't know if many people have spoken about this, but John Jones has seen Curtis Blaydes a lot over the years.
Mm-hmm.
If Tom Aspinall gets past Curtis Blaydes, and particularly in an impressive fashion, then I think that John Jones cannot do anything but acknowledge that victory. And therefore that surely must creep a little bit further into those two getting together. But of course, Tom's got a big appointment, a lot of pressure. He's a Manchester man, just on the outskirts. And yeah, I mean, he's looked fantastic, don't get me wrong. But Tom's very good at wearing his heart on his sleeve and letting us know what's going on in here. And he's rightfully, concerned about what Curtis Blaydes brings to this one.
Dana White kind of, broke the news cycle yesterday when he was on the podcast. I think it was with Shaquille O'Neal, mentioning that, Joe Rogan's been in his ear about Pereira moving up and maybe he's warming up to the idea a little bit. I think most people feel like the rematch between Alexander Volkov and Cyril Gane will fight the winner of this fight. But do you see a world where Pereira could slip in there if there's enough talk about it? I'm of the belief that Pereira still needs to defend his title a few times if he wants to achieve that third belt. But where do you think, sort of the winner of this fight goes from here on next Saturday?
I can see a world in which it happens.
Yeah.
Like, what the guy's been such a great company man. Like, look at what he's accomplished this year on the stages this year. And of course, with the short notice, it's just phenomenal. And I do like to see, I don't want to contradict what I said earlier. I really do like to see people defend their titles. But when you've got something staring you in the face, which is so historic, do you almost give him that? Do you give him that? Given his age and everything else, like, when will this come around again? This opportunity for the three-weight champ. I remember speaking to Hamzat, and bless him, he's been so unlucky with illness and various other things, but he was talking about three-weight, and I was like, oh my goodness, like three-weight championship credentials. Like, when did that even become a thing? But now we're actually staring at the potential of it. I mean, a lot of work to get done. But certainly, whether it be Curtis Blaydes or indeed Tom Aspinall or John Jones. But I mean, I can see a world where it happens, James, for sure. There are great options out there. And isn't it so cool that we're talking about all of these different things around the heavyweight title, and it just hasn't been as exciting as it is in the last 5 years,
Yeah, I completely agree. Now we've got this King Green. I'm making sure I'm saying that correctly because he's officially changed his name. King Green and Paddy Pimblett. One interesting kind of context thing into this, which we just found out recently. This is the last fight on Paddy Pimblett's contract. Now, we saw in that interview with MMA Junkie that he's revealed, look, I want to stay with the UFC, but we're seeing a lot of these YouTubers make some serious money in boxing. I guess my question is, this is arguably Paddy's most dangerous opponent that he's fought. It's in the UK, so at least he has that kind of backing there. But like, how much pressure is on Pimblett not only to win this fight, but also, with the contract looming? I mean, I can't imagine a world where the UFC would let him go, but you got to live up to that contract as well too.
Yeah, well, it would just hurt the numbers, right? If he doesn't come away with a win against King Green, then that your negotiation, you're going to the table with a quite different approach, I would imagine. I was surprised to hear him talk about the boxing. I don't know if it was just something that had been across his socials like 30 minutes before he jumped on whatever it was and then spoke about it. So yeah, interesting. But I mean, Paddy for me is one of the most dynamic grapplers that we've seen come out of the UK. His ability to take the back is phenomenal, and his finishing ability with submissions is top draw. So to then see him go into boxing is like, really? Are you sure? So yeah, I'm a little confused about that. And deep down, Paddy I think he turned down the UFC in the past in order to really make a good conscientious run with enough kind of veteranship to make a run in the UFC. So I know it means something for him to be in the organization, and I can't see him walking away. I really can't. But when he got two mouths to feed, and I don't know has he still got the Barstool gig?
I was wondering that too. I guess we'll find out next week if they're going to promote him or whatever. But I was thinking about that as well because I haven't really seen anything from that since his last fight, I don't believe. So
yeah, I know he's still churning out the vlogs. He does a really good job with his socials. Blaydes is his guy with the camera there, and he's onto a good thing. So I'm sure he's still earning a chunk of change from that. and maybe that puts you in that world. I mean, it's not necessarily my world, so I don't really know how it operates, but like with a lot of these things, your success really does hang off of you, F and C. And if you're not part of the roster, then your marketability and your value in some of these positions can suffer.
Did you happen to see, at the very least, the clip of Paddy on with MMA Guru?
I did not. I'm interested in that. I've firsthand actually learned about MMA Guru. I didn't know about him before. Then I'd said something, and a couple of his guys came after me, and I was like, "Oh,
probably
boy,
more than a couple." Yeah, he's got a bit of an army there for sure. So
yeah, and now I've learned more about him and seen more of his stuff. So yeah, it'd be interesting to go back and see what he and Paddy were talking about.
Yeah, it's just interesting because, like, we have a lot of commentators in the space, not what you do, but I mean on the YouTube side that, talk a lot about fights and performances. So Paddy kind of went at him head on. It wasn't like heated or bad, but Paddy like called him out on it, and he kind of stood his ground a little bit. It's very entertaining. It's something I haven't really seen in the space before. So just wanted to mention if you had seen the interview, because Guru did a full interview with Paddy, which was kind of interesting. So
okay.
So there you go.
Well, he's landing those blue chip guests. Because I know he does a lot of his stuff like solo on camera, right? So
yeah, no, for sure. Just last thing on this card, Arnold Allen. I can't imagine a world where he loses 3 in a row. If you think of the undefeated record he had for so long, and granted, you got to look at who he's fighting. I mean, very close fight with Ivoyev. Previous to that, Max Holloway. I mean, a lot of guys aren't beating Max Holloway. I talked about pressure with Paddy. How about for Arnold Allen here? I mean, he's really got to perform here, I think, to get back in the win column.
Yeah, I mean, as you just alluded to, not all victories and losses are equal, right? Mm-hmm. So we've seen, and forgive me, maybe that was the fight, right? That where we thought that this might be the time to get past Max Holloway, because you had to get through Max Holloway to get to the title. There was no doubt at that point, right? And maybe a few people start thinking, well, I think Max could be on the slide here. So if ever there was a good time, it was like that Tyron Woodley moment, right? Leon had the opportunity, then the pandemic happened, and then we found out that Woodley's career then took a dive. But that was not the case for Holloway. Oh boy, has he rebuilt himself! And I mean, I am just in awe of what that guy's been able to achieve recently. Just sensational stuff. So that loss has aged pretty well, and then I actually spoke with Arnold. I've got a conversation dropping in the next day or so on UFC Fight Pass. He still finds that one really tough with Ivoyev. He doesn't believe he lost. He thought he'd done enough. He's not super emotional about it, as you'll get a sense of when you see the conversation. But I think that takes a little bit of the pressure off. But he's not been in this position before, and he's got a good dance partner though, right? Mm-hmm. Going into this one, it's not a wrestle heavy camp. It is striking. He told me people have likened this to almost like that Dan Hooker style matchup. So let's see what those boys bring. But I am like salivating at the thought of that fight.
When are you back doing commentary duty? When can we see you on the mic again?
So, and this is not a serious point I'm about to make.
Okay.
And I will say it with a smile on my face, but we're all these guys talking about UFC Manchester. I've got to get straight out to Abu. So I'm currently on normal UK time. Then we've got to stretch it out. I will be working the broadcast backstage, but then I've got to go all the way over to Abu and start calling those fights the very next week. So that's going to be a challenge, but I am very excited. What a card that has shaped up to be. I really hope everything holds up and everyone trains safe and gets there and puts on a great show.
John, this was awesome. Thanks for doing it. We're looking forward to it. And this is one of the good pay-per-views this year. We're really excited for it. If there's anything you want to mention before we get out of here, you mentioned the Arnold Allen interview, anything else you got coming up, your YouTube channel, all that good stuff, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well, let's start with the YouTube channel. I have a bunch of vlogs that I've been doing recently, so you can kind of go behind the scenes and see what my fight weeks look like. I did the last one was on Saudi Arabia. I'll probably keep that rolling for Manchester and Abu. I have stuff on UFC Fight Pass, technical breakdowns, interviews with coaches, and I've just for this, every now and then for a UK card, I will just go away from that and I'll speak to some fighters as well. So I've probably got about 3 or 4 coming this week as well. I've got a TikTok account. I'm over there. I'm not doing silly dances by any stretch, but please go follow me over there. Once you get to 10,000 followers, they start paying you. That means I can eat more mashed potato and baked beans.